Your baby's brain has a built-in sleep switch, but right now you're leaving it stuck in the off position without realizing it. Because falling asleep isn't something that you can force. It happens when 5 specific settings line up during the day that either lead to easy, peaceful sleep at the end of the day or another night of fighting it. Miss even one, and that switch stays in the off position no matter how perfect your bedtime routine is. So let's walk through all 5, starting with something that happens before you even take your baby out of the crib. Your baby's body runs on an internal clock called the circadian rhythm. Think of it as a 24-hour timer that tells them when to be awake and when to sleep. This clock resets every single morning, and the thing that resets it is light. That first light of the day is what tells your baby's brain to stop producing melatonin, that sleepy hormone, and restarts the countdown to when melatonin will kick back in, which is roughly 12 to 14 hours later. So if your baby wakes at 7 one morning, their brain programs it to wind down for 7 p.m. But if the next day they sleep until 8:30 and then the day after that they're up at 6:15, their internal clock gets jet lagged. Their body has no idea when to release that melatonin, so their naps and bedtime ends up all over the place. This is why it is so important that your baby has a morning anchor, and this means you need to do 2 things. Firstly, wake them up within the same 30-minute window every single day, and then get them into light as soon as they're up, as that light is what starts their internal body clock. Now, I know that's incredibly hard when you've been up since 3 in the morning, but that consistency is what keeps their internal clock locked in and sets up everything else we're about to cover. Now, while that clock is ticking, a second system is working in the background. It's called sleep pressure. From the second your baby wakes up, their sleep pressure starts building. The longer they're awake, the more it builds, and the sleepier they feel. Think of it like a glass slowly filling with water. By bedtime, that glass needs to be full to the brim for your baby to fall asleep easily, which is why that last wake window, that final stretch of time between that last nap and bedtime, has to be long enough to fill that glass. If you put them down too early, the glass is only half full, and they'll either fight sleep or they'll drift off only to wake up another 20 minutes later because there wasn't enough sleep pressure to keep them asleep. On the flip side, if you stretch them too far, the glass overflows and you get an overtired baby. And as you've probably figured out, overtired babies are actually harder to settle, not easier. Now, there's a very specific sweet spot where that glass is perfectly full, but finding it can be hard because it's completely unique to your baby and it changes constantly as they grow. And unfortunately, just when you think you've figured out their rhythm, they grow and the timing changes again. It's a lot to keep track of when you're already running on no sleep. And that's exactly why I put together a free cheat sheet called the New Parent's Guide to Naps. It gives you a rough guide on those wake windows by age, so you at least know where the ballpark is to start, along with sample nap routines and how much sleep you should realistically expect overnight. And you can grab that for free by clicking the link in the description below. As your baby's bedtime gets closer, it's time to shift your focus to their environment. Your baby's internal clock relies heavily on light to know when it's time to sleep. As the sun goes down and it gets darker, your baby's brain starts producing melatonin, the hormone that signals to their body it's nighttime, and it makes it much easier for them to fall asleep at bedtime. But when their eyes are exposed to bright light, especially blue light from screens and overhead bulbs, their brain gets confused and thinks it's still daytime, and it slams the brakes on that melatonin production. This is where most of us run into trouble, because if your house is fully lit up until the moment you put your baby in their bed, you're accidentally suppressing that sleepy hormone and telling your baby's brain to stay wide awake. And that's exactly what they do. To avoid this, you need to create a dimmer. About 60 minutes before bedtime, start to make your home darker, as that darkness is what encourages melatonin production. So close the blinds to block out the sun or the street lights, and then either dim your overhead lights, switch them off entirely and use lamps instead, or swap your bulbs for red toned ones, as they produce the least amount of blue light, which is the thing that suppresses melatonin production. And of course, you want to cut out phones, tablets, and TV in that hour before bedtime too, as that alone can make a real difference in how quickly your little one settles. Now, melatonin isn't the only signal their body is waiting for. There's another physiological change that tells your baby's body it's nighttime and time to sleep. And this is probably the one you're not quite getting right. Before your baby can fall asleep, their core body temperature needs to drop about 1 degree. That temperature drop makes your baby's brain more receptive to all that sleep pressure that's been filling that glass throughout that last wake window. Think of it like unlocking a door. Once that door swings open, all that built up sleep pressure kicks in and your baby falls asleep more easily and sleeps more deeply. This is the thermal drop, and there are 2 simple things that you can do to encourage it. First, just give your little one a warm bath before bedtime. It sounds counterintuitive, but when your baby is in the warm water, blood rushes from their core to the surface of their skin, especially their little hands and feet. Then, when you get them out, all that heat radiates off their body and their core temperature drops fast. Sleep scientists actually call this the warm bath effect, and as little as 10 minutes in a warm bath an hour or 2 before bed is enough to trigger it. Second, you want to cool down the rooms your baby is in before bedtime, including their bedroom. Ideally, you want to bring it down to somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, which is about 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's going to help encourage their body temperature to drop. And if you can, try to keep their room cool overnight too. Your baby's body temperature naturally keeps falling as they sleep, and when you support that, it actually results in fewer wake-ups as well. Once the lights are dimmed and the room is cool, there is another thing that you need to focus on because it can undo all of your hard work, and that's sound. Your baby's brain is constantly processing sound even while they're falling asleep. So if they can hear the TV through the wall or a car door slamming outside, those sudden loud noises can pull them out of sleep every single time. And even if they don't wake up fully, those disruptions can stop them from settling into the deeper stages of sleep that they need. Now, complete silence isn't the answer either. In fact, it can make things worse because every small sound becomes amplified. What you want instead is an acoustic shield, a consistent low-level background noise that masks those sudden disruptions. A white noise machine or even a fan works incredibly well for this. In fact, one study found that when newborns were exposed to white noise, 80% of them fell asleep in under 5 minutes. But for the babies trying to fall asleep without white noise, only 25% of them fell asleep within those 5 minutes. Now, this is a massive difference, and it shows that simply having something to mask that background noise can completely change how quickly your little one's brain switches off so they can finally fall asleep. Now, if you do decide to use a white noise machine, there are a few things to keep in mind. First, place the machine between your baby and the main source of noise. So if most of the noise comes from the living room, put it between the door and the crib rather than on the far side of the room. Second, keep the volume at roughly the level of a running shower, which is around 50 to 60 decibels. That's loud enough to mask disruptions, but not so loud that it can affect their hearing. Okay, so now all 5 settings are dialed in. All that's left is the thing that actually flips the switch, and that is the bedtime routine. Now, I know that sounds incredibly simple, but a bedtime routine is anything but simple. There's actually a science to getting it right, and it comes down to 3 things: how long the routine lasts, the specific activities you include, and the very last thing you do before you lay your baby down. If any of these aren't quite right for your little one, it can undo all 5 settings you've just put in place. And that's exactly why you want to watch this video next. In it, I break down exactly how to create the ideal bedtime routine for your little one so that you can actually flip their sleep switch.